A landmark Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade, now invalid. Abortions no longer federally protected in the U.S. And state legislatures now regaining their power to decide to what degree, if any, to allow abortion procedures. But nothing expected to change in North Carolina right now. This morning, the U.S. Supreme Court published its 5-4 decision on a Mississippi case that made the 50-year Roe v. Wade precedent unconstitutional. Since news of that decision came down, crowds have gathered outside of the Supreme Court steps. This decision came from the Mississippi case Dobb v. Jackson, which challenged a 2018 Mississippi law banning most abortions after the first 15 weeks of pregnancy. Today, the Supreme Court majority ruled that law is constitutional and issued an opinion that largely matched the leaked draft opinion made public earlier this year.
The outcome is similar to a leaked draft of the court's opinion that appeared in early May. That was written by Justice Samuel Alito. Alito concluded that Roe and a 1992 case, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which basically affirmed the right to abortion, were egregiously wrong and needed to be overruled.
In upholding the Mississippi law, the court also ruled Roe is unconstitutional, meaning the federal government does not have the authority to protect abortions. States can decide what is legal. But Chief Justice John Roberts did not agree in blending the new case with Roe. Roberts concurred with the majority's basis for upholding Mississippi's 15-week ban, but did not join the majority opinion. He said he agreed part of Roe was unconstitutional, but did not think the new Mississippi case had grounds to overturn it. That's why this decision was 5-4 instead of the expected 6-3. Conservative-leaning justices Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett formed the majority. Liberal-leaning justices Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan dissented. It's unlikely we will see an immediate direct impact of this in North Carolina unless the state legislature flips heavily Republican in the midterms. Although the House and Senate have Republican majorities right now, they don't have enough votes to overturn a potential governor veto on abortion restrictions.
We do have a Democratic governor, so, he obviously can overturn some of these laws that are coming through the assembly, and the legislature is of course primarily Republican, and we know that folks are leaning towards this idea around restricting, and that I'm not sure where our state will end up on this continuum, but I'm not confident that we would just stick with what we have on the books right now.
So let's look at what is on the books and North Carolina's history with abortion laws. In 1973, lawmakers banned abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. That is usually the halfway point in a woman's pregnancy, just before the fetus is considered medically viable or possibly able to survive outside the womb. Years later, in 2011, the topic came up again under the Women's Right to Know Act. This is when lawmakers voted to require a counseling session 24 hours before an abortion procedure, parental permission for those under 18, and ultrasound viewings. Then Governor Beverly Perdue vetoed the bill, but the General Assembly overturned it. In 2015, lawmakers updated the law with Women and Children's Protection Act. That issued a mandatory 3-day waiting period after a consultation before an abortion can happen. The law also narrowed the acceptable exceptions in which abortions can happen after 20 weeks. But in 2019, a lower court decision allowed more abortions after 20 weeks in certain situations. And in 2021, an appeals court agreed. So it's unclear still how today's Supreme Court decision could affect the original ban on abortions after 20 weeks. Again, states now have the power to make their decisions on whether women can get abortions. A group that researches reproductive rights says 22 states already have laws that could be used to restrict access and time frames. 13 states have so-called trigger laws that would ban all or nearly all abortions now that Roe v. Wade is overturned. Those are the states in yellow. Researchers believe the states in orange also are certain to ban abortions based on laws passed before and after Roe. The group believes the 4 states that are striped here are likely to ban based on their political makeup, history, and recent actions limiting abortions. Here's a look at the states with laws dedicated to protecting abortion rights. The light green states and the District of Columbia offer full protection without state interference throughout the entire pregnancy. The dark green states allow abortion prior to fetal viability or when necessary to protect the life or health of the mother. Roe v. Wade originally posed the question to the court: does the Constitution protect a woman's right to terminate her pregnancy by abortion? Back in '73, Justice Harry Blackburn delivered the opinion for the majority, finding that it did indeed with limitations. The protection had to be balanced against the government's interest in protecting women's health and, quote, the potentiality of human life. The court said a woman's decision to have an abortion during the first 3 months of her pregnancy must be left to her and her doctor. Before the ruling, abortion was broadly legal in only 4 states and allowed under limited circumstances in 16 others. Constitutional rights trump state laws, so the court's decision nullified the bans in the remaining 30 states. Many state and federal lawmakers for North Carolina are responding as we speak to this landmark decision. Governor Roy Cooper said in part, quote, "It is now up to the states to determine whether women get reproductive health care, and in North Carolina, they still can." Representative Ted Budd said in part, "Today's ruling by the Supreme Court is a historic victory for the millions of Americans who believe that every life is precious and deserves protection." State Attorney General Josh Stein said in part, quote, "North Carolina state law protects women's reproductive freedoms even after the Supreme Court today stripped women of their right to an abortion under the Constitution by overturning Roe v. Wade." Senator Tom Tillis said in part, quote, "This ruling is historic and monumental and affirms my belief that all life is sacred." We're working on more statements from some of our local lawmakers and those running for office in the upcoming midterms, and we'll have much more in our evening newscasts. President Biden and Democrats in Congress have pushed for passage of legislation enshrining the right to an abortion into federal law. The measure would add federal protections separate from the Supreme Court. The bill had passed the House, but twice, most recently in mid-May, failed to meet the 60-vote threshold to advance in the Senate. Even if it were to pass, debate over the measure's constitutionality would make it back to the Supreme Court, and based on today's ruling, the court likely would overturn it. This is a huge story. We will be on top of it all day. The implications for weeks and months ahead. WFMYnews2.com is your go-to resource for the latest developments.